oil and gas news here. Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and Gas, says the federal government of Nigeria is fully committed to the UTM Floating Liquefied Natural Gas Project, FLNG. He disclosed this while speaking at the Nigeria International Energy Summit. He also said the project will reduce gas flaring and enhance Nigeria's export capacity.
In September 2024, Nigeria achieved another milestone by granting UTM Offshore Limited the first ever license for floating liquefied natural gas LNG plants. This innovative project will process gas from Seplat Oil Mining Lease 104, producing 2.8 metric tons per annum of LNG and 500,000 metric tons of liquefied petroleum gas, effectively reducing gas flaring and enhancing Nigeria's export capacity.
All right, at that same summit, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has given assurance to global oil and gas investors that they'll be able to repatriate their funds out of the country. There it is, today's This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record. Right at the top there, Tinubu reassures global oil investors of easy repatriation of their investments. That brings us, of course, to Zeal Akaraiwe, who's the CEO of Graeme Blaque. Let's talk about FX repatriation, the Naira. Zeal, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Well, so with the president giving an assurance to investors that they can repatriate their funds out of the country, no problems at all, how does what the CBN has been able to do, the Central Bank of Nigeria, in clearing backlogs, and you've talked a lot about investor confidence, how does that play into to bolster the president's assurance there to investors?
I think the president is just reiterating what the regulations are. The issues a lot of investors have had in terms of repatriation of their funds. If you look from 2-3 years ago, there was a liquidity problem. We all acknowledge that. But beyond that, even without the liquidity problem, what you find is a lot of investors, for different reasons, don't come into the country properly. Now, I will say that the oil and gas people have largely been compliant. Largely, but because we have exchange controls, there's a means with which you bring your investment in. If you follow that route, taking it out is completely seamless. Completely seamless. So the president is just reiterating the fact that even though we have exchange controls, if you do things properly, there'll be absolutely no issues in taking your money out. At least for now, given where we're coming from over the last 2 years, we're all experiencing the fact that we no longer have a liquidity issue.
All right. Now, I do want to ask you about something that has been noticed with the exchange rate. As of yesterday, FMDQ, we closed at 1,501.42. We called a couple BDCs this morning, about 9:53, and they were quoting 1,500. I mean, it's almost like we're practically at parity. What do you make of that development there?
That's been the aim of the central bank, to make sure that the disparity closes significantly. A lot of things caused that distortion, and that distortion was not healthy for our financial markets at all. You find that a lot of the reasons had issues around not just liquidity, it had issues around investor confidence, it had issues around accessibility, there were issues around policy, misunderstanding of policy or inconsistencies in policy. So what the central bank has done, if you notice over the last 15, 18 months, is, I remember once upon a time on this show, I think someone said there's so many seculars that, secularization of the economy. And I tell people, you need to remember, the central bank is not regulating using body language.
Right.
If there are things that have been done in the past that need to be corrected, the only way the central bank can let the entire industry know that things have changed is to issue a circular. So, I mean, I don't know how else you want them to do it. So a lot of circulars were issued. There was a flurry of circulars the first quarter of last year, correcting a lot of this distortion, freeing up a lot of bottlenecks. And many people may not know this, but we state it regarding Monetary Policy Committee, the MPC. But a lot of monetary policy actions take a couple of months to feed into the economy. Not everything is immediate. So all those actions that were taken the first quarter of last year, a lot of them smoothened out during the year. Then other things that were done, we all know of BMAS that was introduced, the FX code was introduced. All of those things coming together over a 6-9 month period, we are now seeing the results. So people looking for what happened last week. It's not what happened last week. You have to go back to April, May, June last year and look at the series of things that the central bank has been doing.
All right. One of those impacts or results we're seeing is the IMTO, International Money Transfer Operators, inflow coming into the country January through September of last year, so 9-month period, up 63%, 3.8 billion or so. So, can you speak to that? Is that part of the liberalization of the rates?
Well, in a sense, yes. So again, behind the scenes, I don't know if you're aware, sometime last quarter of last year, there was a roadshow abroad with the banks, the central bank, meeting the IMTOs, telling them this is how things work, this is how things should be. Again, like I said, a lot of people that were not complying with the regulations, a lot of them were simply not aware of the regulations. So all that work has been done behind the scenes. You know, a lot of BDC licenses were cancelled. A lot of new IMTOs have been onboarded. So that has freed up a lot of that cash flow cycle to make it easy to come in. Of course, the exchange controls are still there, but it's still easy. So the flow is more natural. And once you've bridged the gap between the two markets, you find that the need to go elsewhere kind of dies. Second, as investor confidence increases, and as the panic, because a big part of what caused that issue was panic.
Right.
If you buy things as you need them, there's no glut. But a lot of people were just rushing to buy and hold because there was this panic. Once that panic eased out and the confidence rose and the policies were smoothened out, what you then found was that the need for people to engage in sharp practices to access dollars dissipated. And so all of those things were part of the work done behind the scenes that allowed the convergence to happen.
All right, we did have Mr. Bismarck Rwane on the show on Monday, right? And you know, he was also talking about the reforms on the central bank, how things have been improved, Naira stability. But there was one sticky part of what was discussed, which was with respect to the defense of the currency. Him saying that about 8 billion was used, and we went back and forth about it. Let's just play an excerpt from that.
I can explain it. Yeah. We borrowed 2 billion in 2 tranches, making $4 billion from the Eurobond market. Yeah. And it was for general purposes, that is fiscal deficit support and other things. At the same time, we drew down on our reserves also from 42 to 38. Yeah. If you add 4 to 4, it's 8. It's not a rocket science. But you have to understand what was that 8. And that is $8 billion so much compared to an export values in excess of $50 billion a year. No, it's nothing.
I would look at it again, and I'm in your camp. It's just not to belabor the point. It's just that with the reserves appreciating to 40 billion, there's a bit of the pushback is, okay, how are you calculating 42 when the high has been 40 billion? Then how do you apply the 4 billion from the Eurobonds as an assumption that it is being sold into the market? That's what.
Let me clarify that. Yeah. The peak, as far as I know, in the last year, was the reserves got to $42.4 billion.
But the CBN reported it as 40.
No, 40, no. Yeah. We have it on record. Okay. 42 point something billion. Yeah. And it came down gradually. And mind you, it is gross, the average of gross reserves, not net reserves. Yeah. The discussion of what is the difference between gross and net is another discussion. Of course. But so if we take that peak number of 42 in the last 12 months and take it down to 38, that's 4, plus the 4. But what are the purposes of reserves? Reserves are to be used to intervene.
Right, and import cover.
Yes, so I think we're in a good place. Right.
Well, he says we're in a good place, and I think you would agree with that. But what do you make of the back of the envelope math there, or difference?
So let me give a different set of numbers. I mean, what his math is correct. 4 plus 4 is 8. Yeah, but the concept around defending the currency is what needs to be addressed. So if you check historically being, let's say, 2022, 2023, you'll find that the central bank was possibly contributing as much as 70 to 80% of the foreign exchange utilized in the market. Right. Okay, That sounds like a defense situation.
Yeah.
If you look at 2024, that was just last year, in terms of sales into the market, the central bank's contribution is just under 10%, right? Now, if you were to, which is the roughly 4, yeah? But you see, selling FX is part of the central bank's
mandate.
Day-to-day business.
Yeah.
In terms of what the central bank governor has consistently said, maintain stability. Now, what people don't know outside the market is fully aware, is the central bank, in order to maintain that stability, would often sell money and also buy money.
Aha.
Okay? Now, many people don't know that. So if you were to net central bank sales and purchases in 2024, the contribution to the market is about 3%.
Oh, wow.
The
So it's
market,
really- okay.
and that is something I think the entire market needs to appreciate, and I know some are aware.
Yeah.
Central bank is involved in the market, but the level of involvement has reduced so much because the market has now been able to sustain itself, which is one of the key indicators of a healthy market.
Right.
It's not the government putting money in, it's that the market, the cash flow cycles, what's coming in through your IMTOs and your FPIs and all that, is able to match what's going out as your divestments. And as long as that flow is maintained, and the central bank only comes in if there's a distortion. And that is making a big difference compared to 2022 and 2023. So in terms of defending the currency, I mean, and I watched the episode, he did say there's not, that defending a currency that is undervalued is a good thing. What we're defending, or what the central bank is defending, is the stability.
Right.
That is much more important, so that people can plan, businesses can plan. And I won't even say the currency is being defended, the flows coming in and going out. And I don't remember if it was sometime last year, I did say that many people are not aware. Of last year, most of last year, from about the second month, February or March last year, definitely the first quarter, the amount of inflows into the economy was higher than the outflows. But people did not know. So that information arbitrage was also part of what was causing panic. And how you noticed that that changed was when the central bank introduced B-March in December.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, the currency appreciated 10%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's not that there was more cash flow. It's not that there was more injection. Not that the central bank did anything.
Yeah.
What happened was transparency increased, and people in the market realized there's supply.
Right.
And so that distortion got corrected.
How does that get maintained going forward?
How does what get
Everything
maintained?
you've just explained. It's just keep it as is, essentially. But so in terms of what the CBN does, in order to maintain the stability of the currency, I guess for the rest of the year.
I like to use water systems in terms of our FX market, yeah? You have a tank.
Yeah.
And, okay, now let me use peak milk, yeah?
Okay.
You know, the tin milk.
Okay.
We all drink from
I
it,
get
yeah?
an invoice from the sales team, but just for the brand. But
Tin milk, the liquid milk in tin, yeah? Okay. You know, you put one hole in it.
Yes.
And you turn it.
Right.
Nothing comes out.
That's right.
Unless you apply pressure.
Right.
You put a second hole and then it flows.
Right.
So that's how the foreign exchange market works. There was a glut. And so we were trying to control outflows. And so that affected inflows. What the central bank has done over the last year or so is create all those bottlenecks, open them up so that it flows more naturally, which is what we are now experiencing. So the question of what do we do going forward, it's flowing.
Yeah.
And as long as the confidence is there and improving. Now, again, something else Bismarck said about the reserves dropping. In the investor meetings that I was part of end of last year, the central bank did say that in the first quarter of this year, due to various governmental obligations falling due, Eurobond coupons, all sorts of things falling due, that there was going to be a dip in the reserves for the first quarter of this year. Then from the second quarter, the accretion starts again.
Okay.
So the dip, I mean, again, your reserves are like your
Bank
savings.
accounts,
It's used for different things. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily that you're going to use it to be sold into the market. So all those obligations fell due, and that's exactly what reserves are for. It's for you to meet all your obligations. So we were able to meet all our obligations as they fell due, and from the second quarter, they had told us since last year, the accretion starts again. So I think, I mean, all of us are here compared to where we were 2 years ago. We're in a really amazing place.
Amazing place. All right, we're almost out of time. Look, the MPC held rates. I know there was a CPI rebasing and so on. What's your view on monetary policy path that we're on right now?
Something the central bank governor has said consistently is that the decisions will be data-driven.
Yeah.
And so when they take a decision in the MPC, you look at the data. Anyone that understands data will largely understand and agree, which also brings a high level of predictability to what the central bank MPC will do. So we've had this issue with inflation over the years. This is the first month of the rebase.
Right.
Now, what I would have loved the NBS to have done is publish both old method and new method.
Gotcha.
Now, the error many people have made is assume that inflation has gone from 34 to 24. It hasn't.
Right.
The method of calculating inflation has changed. In the old method, it was 34. In the new method, it's 24. What I would have loved the NBS to do is to also publish the old method for 2 or 3 months so that we can see a trend.
Right.
They've not done that. So it's not that inflation dropped 1,000 points.
Yeah.
It's just that the new method shows this. And so it made sense to me that the MPC says, look, let's watch and see. Let's not take any drastic actions. And so after the next MPC is in May,
right,
we would have had 2 or 3 months to be able to establish a trend, and then they can take a decision. Meanwhile, while that is going on, in the yield market, in the bond market, the fixed income market, the market is reacting.
Yeah.
Yields have come off about 300-400 basis points over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That's big. That's a big deal. That shows a lot of confidence in what is going on. That tells you what people are thinking of the future already.
Zeal Akaraiwe, CEO of Graeme Blaque. Always a pleasure having you to come on the show and illuminate our minds on these issues. Thank you so much for your time.